Hello, I hope you are well. Welcome to my very first YouTube video in which I am going to build, paint and weather this. A British Cromwell MKIV cruiser tank. This kit is from Tamiya. The scale is 1/35. The box art is gorgeous, as is expected from Tamiya. I used Google Translate on the side of the box and it did a pretty good job in translating the Japanese. This blurb is a basic description of the Cromwell tank. Let's take a look inside the box. This is the first model tank I have ever built. I am very impressed with the level of detail in this model. I picked up an extra model as well. This is a World War II British tank crew model from Alpine Miniatures. I recently watched a video by the content creator Frank, at Brews and Sprues. Check out his YouTube channel, link in the description. He recommended the 135 scale Churchill tank kit by Tamiya. I couldn't find the Churchill kit at my local hobby store, but they did have the Cromwell. Shout out to Battlefield Hobbies, Brooklyn. That's Brooklyn in Melbourne, Australia, by the way. To cut the model from the sprue, I am using God hand nippers. I used to have a pair of nippers from Games Workshop, but they were not great quality and broke. These have been fantastic. From watching a lot of beginner videos on the subject, I have noticed that a very important step in building a scale model is making sure most, if not all, of the flashing on the model is cleaned off. Here I am using my scalpel blade to gently scrape off the remaining flashing. I lost one of these pieces and later found it on the carpet under my desk. A very lucky chance finding with my phone torch. One thing I have noticed is that there is not much room for error when assembling a kit like this. It's worth mentioning that these rubber pieces, named poly cap, in the instructions, are not to be glued. I assume this is to help the wheel part rotate. I had to go back and fix this piece as I had placed it incorrectly. I will wait to attach the wheels. I am constructing this model in sub-assemblies and I am planning on painting the wheels, tracks and the hull separately. I fixed 5 of these suspension arms, per side, to the lower hull. This section of the model is pretty cool. This is one of the Cromwell's secondary armaments. A 7.92mm Baser machine gun. This part of the model actually moves around, on a kind of ball socket joint. This section of the Cromwell tank has an interesting history. The Cromwell would expel a large amount of smoke from its exhaust. It would even spit some fire, which would be easily seen by the enemy during night engagements. A cover for this section was designed and implemented. It was called the Normandy cowl. This would hide the flames and direct the exhaust fumes downward. Whilst doing some research about the Cromwell tank, I found out that the tank was first designed in 1942, but did not see any combat until 1944. One would think that would be a little too late, as the war was coming to a close. Perhaps the designers thought the war had a few more years left. I'd like to take the following few moments to touch on some of the history of the Cromwell tank. The biggest praise of the Cromwell was that of its Meteor V12 engine. The Cromwell tank engine was 600 horsepower and 27 litres. Engineers took the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine from the famous Spitfire Hurricane aircraft and adapted it to the tank you see before you. Somehow, without the supercharger on the engine, it was still capable of achieving 600 horsepower. Incredible! With this kind of power, it meant that the tank, on a flat section of road, could go upwards of 40 miles an hour. This was incredibly quick for the time, and the crew inside the tank found it difficult to perform any other duty if the tank was cruising at those high speeds. The tank sits on Christie-type suspension, which was adapted by British engineers. This gave the tank a very comfortable ride over harsh countryside. The tank's main armament is a 75mm gun. As the story goes, it was originally fitted with a 6-pounder gun, and the engineers managed to modify this into a 75mm gun. When in fact, it appears they developed a new 75mm gun and retrofitted to the 6-pounder mount. What all this means is that by having a 75mm gun, it gave the commander a more explosive gun. The tank has a crew of 5. You have the driver, the hull machine gunner, and then the 3 men in the turret. Who are the tank commander, the loader, and the gunner? The 7th Armoured Division were the main unit to adopt the Cromwell during the Second World War. The Cromwell saw action within the Polish army also. All in all, the Cromwell was a formidable fighting machine, although not as well armoured as its allies or even its opponents. What it lacked, it made up in mobility and speed. So, there we have it. The construction and some of the weathering is done on my very own Cromwell Mark IV tank. I hope you enjoyed following and observing my process as a novice model builder. I went back and removed the exhaust meshing and put the Normandy cowl on. I believe this looks much better. In the next episode I will continue to weather the tank and of course, add some paint. I am surprised the kit did not come with antennas. Don't worry, I have some ideas of how I can make these at home. Well, I look forward to seeing you next time. All the best, and remember, a base coat a day keeps the pile of grey models at bay.